Have you ever looked at an elderly loved one and thought, something's not quite right, but couldn't put your finger on it? Maybe they're smiling like always, chatting like they usually do, saying, "I'm fine," because they don't want to worry anyone. But deep down, something in you whispers. Something has changed. Maybe they gave away their favorite sweater for no reason. Maybe they sat a little longer in silence than usual. Maybe they started talking about old memories more often. Or about people who've already passed on. It doesn't look like a cry for help. They're not asking for anything. But you feel it. In the quiet. In the shift. In the way they look at you a little longer than before. You want to believe it's nothing. We all do. Because the thought of losing someone we love, especially slowly and silently, is too heavy to carry alone. But what if these little changes are more than just old age? What if your loved one is quietly preparing to say goodbye? And they're doing it in the only way they know how? This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about catching the whispers before they become echoes. It's about giving them the comfort, dignity, and presence they deserve, while there's still time. And I know. You don't want to miss the signs. You don't want to look back one day and think, "I wish I had paid more attention." That's why this video matters. Because today, we're going to talk about 5 subtle behaviors that might look harmless, but could mean your elderly loved one is getting ready to leave this world. Not out loud. Not with words. But with actions that speak volumes, if we know how to listen. By the end of this video you'll understand what to watch for, what it really means, and what you can do to make their final chapter one of peace, comfort, and deep connection. So, if you've ever had that feeling in your gut that something's different, stick around, this might be the most important video you'll watch this year. And before we dive in, take a second, right now. Comment, "I'm here," if you believe our elders deserve to be seen, heard, and supported all the way to the very end. And if this speaks to your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide, where we honor aging not with fear, but with love, knowledge, and compassion. Now, let's begin. Picture this. Mrs. Gloria, 82 years old. Always full of stories, full of laughter, a woman whose jewelry box held decades of memories. Each piece meant something, a brooch from her wedding day, a bracelet from her late sister, earrings she wore every Christmas. And then, one afternoon, without warning, she began giving them away. One to her granddaughter, just because. Another to a neighbor who once brought her soup during a cold. No birthday. No holiday. No explanation. Her family smiled, thinking, "That's just grandma being sweet." But just days later, her health took a sudden turn. And those small gestures, those precious parting gifts, suddenly felt like something deeper. A quiet goodbye, wrapped in silver and gold. You see, this isn't just about being generous. There's a psychological truth here. When someone begins giving away treasured belongings, especially without prompting, it can reflect an inner process of closure. It's as if they're tying emotional ribbons on the people and moments that mattered most. Experts say this can be a subconscious preparation. They may not even realize they're doing it, but somewhere inside, they're making peace. Releasing attachments. Passing on little pieces of their story. But here's where many of us miss it, we assume it's simply nostalgia. We say, "Oh, she's just in a reflective mood." Or, "He just wants to clean out his drawer." But when it happens suddenly, or repeatedly, especially from someone who normally holds on tightly to sentimental items, that's when it's time to pause. To look a little closer. What should you do if you notice this? Don't panic. Don't pry. Instead, open the door to a conversation. Gently ask, "That necklace means a lot to you. What made you want to give it away today?" Or, "That's such a thoughtful gift. What memories does it hold for you?" Let them speak. Let them feel in control. Because often, they're not asking for help, they're asking to be seen. And your willingness to listen may give them more peace than anything else in the world. But gifts are just the beginning. Sometimes, the quietest signals aren't in what they give, but in how they feel. Let's talk about a shift that happens deep inside, one that many mistake for simple old age. But could be something much more profound. Let me tell you about Mr. Daniel. He was 87, sharp-minded, witty, and a fighter to the end. For months, he battled pain, discomfort, and sleepless nights. His family watched him struggle. Medications, doctor visits, the works. Then, one morning, something changed. He was peaceful. No more complaints. No more groans when he sat up. He smiled softly. Spoke gently. And even joked, "I feel lighter today." His daughter called her siblings, thrilled. "Dad's doing better," she said. "He's turned a corner." But 3 days later, Mr. Daniel passed in his sleep. Quietly. Gently. As if he had finally let go. That calmness they saw wasn't recovery. It was resolution. An emotional clarity that sometimes comes when a person begins to accept what's coming. You see, as people come to terms with their mortality, especially after a long period of suffering, there's often a surprising shift. Not fear. Not resistance. But peace. It's a kind of spiritual exhale. The body might still be tired, even declining. But emotionally, they feel finished with the struggle. They've made peace with their story, their people, and their time. But here's the hard part. We often misunderstand this shift. We think, they're healing. We start planning outings, talking about future appointments, picking up their favorite snacks. But while we're planning ahead, they may already be saying goodbye, in the most loving and gentle way they know how, by giving us one last version of themselves at peace. So, what should you do if you see this? First, breathe with them. Let go of the urge to fix, plan, or rush. Be present. Take in their voice, their smile, the stillness. Listen to their words, even if they say very little. Because sometimes, peace isn't a beginning, it's a farewell. And that moment of quiet grace they offer? It's not just a sign. It's a gift. A message wrapped in calm, "I'm okay. And you will be too." But emotional shifts are only one part of the picture. There's another kind of change that many overlook, one that speaks through the body, not the words. Let's take a closer look. You've probably seen it yourself. That quiet change that sneaks in. The person who once laughed loudest at the dinner table now sits it out. Says, maybe next time, a little too often. Spends more time in bed. Less time near the window. You ask, "Are you okay?" They smile. Soft. Gentle. "I'm just tired." And at first, you believe it. Because of course they're tired. Aging isn't easy. Life wears us down. But over time, you realize. It's not just tiredness. It's withdrawal. Not from love. But from the weight of being here. I remember a man named Thomas. Lively, opinionated, always showing up for Sunday roasts, even when he was sore or slow. Then one month, he started staying in. Skipped meals. Slept most afternoons. Didn't argue about politics anymore. His family tried everything. Encouraged walks. Played his favorite music. They thought maybe it was depression, or maybe he just needed motivation. But it wasn't that. It was deeper. You see, as the body begins to prepare for its final season, it naturally starts pulling inward. The energy that once went into conversations and movement, now turns toward rest, reflection, and stillness. It's not always sadness. It's often a quiet surrender. A way of saying, I've given enough. I need to rest now. But this is where many of us, out of love, make the wrong move. We try to pep them up. We say things like, let's go for a short walk, just 5 minutes. You'll feel better once you get out. Come on, don't isolate yourself. We mean well. But what they often need most, is to just be. To sit in peace. To feel safe. To be allowed to slow down without guilt or pressure. So, if your loved one is suddenly more fatigued, more distant, more quiet, don't rush them back to who they used to be. Instead, sit beside them. Hold their hand. Be a soft presence in their stillness. Let them set the pace. Because when they pull away from the noise of the world, it may not be rejection. It may be their soul preparing for something beyond it. And still, there's one behavior that might feel small, even casual. But it can be the clearest whisper of all. Let's look at that next. It started subtly with Nana. She was always sharp. Always present. But one afternoon, while folding towels, she said, "When I used to live here," her granddaughter laughed softly and asked, "What do you mean?" "You still do." But Nana didn't laugh. She just smiled gently and replied, "Yes. I suppose I do, for now." Later that week, she mentioned her sister. "I talked to Evelyn today. She said it's okay to rest." Now, Evelyn had been gone for nearly 20 years. At first, the family assumed Nana was dreaming, or maybe mixing up memories. They worried about dementia. Should they call the doctor? Adjust her medication? But Nana didn't seem confused. In fact, she seemed clearer than she had in weeks. She wasn't distressed. She was calm. Present. Peaceful. You see, this isn't as rare as it might seem. Near the end of life, some seniors experience what's known as end-of-life cognition. It's not about mental decline. It's not delusion. It's a deeply personal experience, where they may begin speaking of life in the past tense, or mention interactions with loved ones who have already passed. It's not always easy for families to hear. We get scared. We think, is this confusion? Is this a sign of something wrong? And understandably, we want to fix it. We want to bring them back to what feels real and grounded. But what if? What if their experience is real, just in a way we can't fully explain? What if their words are not confusion, but transition? Not decline, but connection? Instead of correcting them, try leaning in. Ask them gently, "What did Evelyn say?" Let them speak. Let them share. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, it makes perfect sense to them. And in that moment, you're not just comforting them. You're walking beside them, in one of the most sacred moments of their life. Because sometimes, the doorway between here and what's next, is not loud or dramatic. It's soft. Whispered. And filled with names we thought we'd never hear again. But there's one more sign. One that carries the deepest weight of all. And it often shows up when we least expect it. I remember sitting beside Uncle Joe on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The TV was off. The sun poured gently through the window. He was wrapped in his favorite brown blanket, slippers on, family photos lining the shelves. By every definition, he was home. But then, he looked out the window, toward nothing in particular, and whispered, "I want to go home." At first, it broke our hearts. We thought maybe he didn't recognize his surroundings. Maybe he was confused. So someone leaned in gently and said, "Uncle Joe, you are home. This is your house, remember?" He nodded slowly. Smiled faintly. But then he said again, "No, not this home. And that's when we understood, he wasn't talking about four walls or a street address. He wasn't talking about bricks or furniture. He was talking about peace. About a place his soul remembered, a return to something far beyond this world. When elders say, "I want to go home," and they're already sitting in their favorite chair, it's not always confusion. It can be a sacred longing. A quiet knowing that their journey is winding down. That their spirit is beginning to release its hold on this side of things, and prepare for what's next. But here's where many families misstep. Out of love and fear, we try to anchor them back. We say, "This is your home, Nana. Don't you remember? You're safe here. You're not going anywhere." And while those words come from a place of care, they may unintentionally dismiss what your loved one is truly feeling. So next time, try something else. Something softer. Try asking, "What does home look like to you?" Let them describe it. Let them paint it with memory and feeling. Because home may be a childhood porch. It may be the smell of their mother's cooking. It may be a place they never visited, but somehow know. Or, it may be a reunion with those they've already lost. This moment isn't about correction. It's about connection. It's a moment to hold space for their transition. To acknowledge the invisible thread they're beginning to follow. And when you do that, when you stop trying to fix or explain, and instead just listen, you give them one of the most powerful gifts a human being can give, the freedom to leave without fear. To rest without resistance. To feel understood, even in goodbye. These 5 signs. They aren't about fear. They're about presence. They're about knowing how to truly see your loved one, when they begin speaking not just with words, but with the quiet language of the heart. Now, let's take a breath. And talk about what this all means for you. You know, no matter how old we get, or how many years we've had together, we're never really ready to say goodbye. Even when the signs are there, quiet, consistent, sometimes even gentle, it still feels like a surprise when that moment comes. Because love doesn't count days. It just holds on. But here's the truth that many of us avoid, even when we know it in our bones: ignoring the signs doesn't stop the journey. It just leaves us unprepared for the end of the road. It leaves things unsaid. Moments missed. Hugs not given. And that's why we talk about these things here. Because this isn't just about aging. It's about honoring. It's about seeing the last phase of life not as an ending to fear, but as a sacred season to cherish. These signs, yes, they can be heavy. They can stir grief even before loss arrives. But they're also invitations. Invitations to lean in closer. To listen differently. To forgive quicker. To love harder. They remind us that time is not forever, but that presence can make a single afternoon feel eternal. So, if you've noticed even one of these behaviors in someone you care about, don't panic. Don't rush to fix it. Instead, pause. Sit beside them. Hold their hand without needing a reason. Ask what they're thinking about. Say what needs to be said, while there's still time to say it. Even just a whisper of "I love you" can become a lifetime's comfort. There is no perfect way to do this. You're not expected to have all the answers. And truthfully, your loved one doesn't need you to. What they need is you. Fully present. Gentle. Loving. Real. Because in the end, our presence, our quiet, compassionate presence, is the softest place for someone to rest. And that is more powerful than any medicine. That is what makes the goodbye a little more peaceful. Let's take a moment to gently recap what we've uncovered today. We explored 5 quiet, but deeply meaningful signs that an elderly loved one may be preparing to say goodbye. 1. Giving away personal belongings, not just generosity, but a symbolic release. 2. sudden calmness or peace, a serenity that can feel like healing, but may signal acceptance. 3. Unexplained fatigue or withdrawal, not laziness or sadness, but a soft retreat from the world. 4. Talking with the past or deceased loved ones, a spiritual reconnection, not always confusion. 5. Saying they want to go home, a longing for peace, not always a place. These aren't just signs, they're gentle messages. And how we respond to them can shape the final chapter of someone's story, in the most beautiful way. So, let me ask you this, have you ever seen any of these signs in someone you love? Maybe in your grandmother, your dad, or a neighbor who suddenly started acting differently. Share your experience in the comments. Not just for you, but for someone else who might be walking that same quiet road right now, feeling unsure, scared, or alone. You never know whose heart your words might comfort. And if you found this video comforting or even eye-opening, please subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide. Here, we don't just talk about aging. We honor it. We talk about what really matters, love, presence, and the human experience of growing older with dignity and grace. Every day, we bring you thoughtful content, created with care. For seniors, their families, and everyone who believes that wisdom doesn't fade with age. It deepens. So hit that subscribe button. Stay with us on this journey. You are not alone. Thank you for spending this time with us today. And remember, stay strong, stay loving, and above all, hold each moment like it matters, because it does. We'll see you in the next video.